Welcome to another episode of the MMA Lock-Cast. I'm your host, Manpreet, aka MMA Lock of the Night, and your boy on Twitter at MMA LOTN. This week, we're going to be going over UFC 231, which goes down this Saturday in Toronto, Ontario, where I'm going to be fucking live. That deserves some fucking horns. I'm so psyched to be at a live UFC event again. It's been so long. Last time I went was UFC 206, which was the last time they were in Toronto, which was headlined by Anthony Pettis and Max Holloway. So we get Max Holloway coming back to Toronto, who's pretty much adopted Toronto as his home away from home. You know, we all know he's from Hawaii, but he's always showing love to Toronto, always has a Toronto Raptors hat on or a jersey on or something like that. So it's cool to have him kind of as like our adopted child in a sense. So he's going up against Brian Ortega this time around. Fucking amazing fight. It's been supposed to go down since the beginning of this year. A lot of bullshit's been going on, you know, Max's health being the main issue. But other than that, you know, the fact that it's a mere couple days away, knock on wood, hopefully Max Holloway makes weight, hopefully his meds are all good, his health is all good, and we can get the show on the road. You know, Max Holloway has been probably one of the better 145 champions that we've had, especially in the history, you know, with Aldo and Conor pretty much being the only other guys. Max Holloway is really close to overtaking Jose Aldo as the best featherweight of all time. A great showing against Brian Ortega this time around could also, you know, be further ammunition for that argument. However, you know, T-City's no slouch, so it's not a fight that he should be taking lightly, and especially with his health concerns coming into this fight, it's going to be very interesting. So if we get the prime, super healthy Max Holloway, I think he should be able to win this fight, but we'll get into that a little bit at the end of this podcast. I'm just getting a little ahead of myself. I'm just so excited for the fight, but the whole card is fucking stacked. I'm super psyched for it. But as we always do, we're going to be kicking off the podcast with the casuals. This week we got my man Big Rob.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And this time around, we're going to be going over Cheick Kongo versus Pat Barry all the way from UFC Live 4, which was several years ago now. One of the craziest sequences / knockouts, as I'm sure all of you are aware of, but my man over here has no fucking idea. So I'm just going to start kicking it off. I got it at the 257 mark of the first round, and you guys pretty much know what the fuck happened from here. So. Volume? No volume? Probably no volume.
Okay.
Let's just get your reaction, my man.
There's a kick. Whoa.
Oh, go down. Kongo goes down.
Why is he?
Pat Barry following up.
Okay.
Should be stopped, right?
Yeah.
Maybe.
It looked like he was done.
Jeez. How's he even getting up?
Whoa.
Oh, one more time.
Oh.
It's done now, right?
Yeah.
It's.
Oh, no.
Is it? Is it done yet? What are you doing? Hey, what's going on? What's up?
No. Did he trip on his shoelace or something?
Dude, he landed like the perfect punch. Look at him. He's absolutely out. Out. Look at his leg. You see his right leg? It's just dangling.
Now, was that a strategy? Did he do that on purpose? Did he pretend to go down?
No.
Or is he just like...
He was hurt, bro.
Yeah, okay.
He was hurt. There's certain times where like punches will put you out, but then punches will also be able to wake you up.
Oh,
so
okay,
like if you're out, you might be waking up to getting punched, and like maybe that's what happened with him. But
yeah, okay.
It happened twice to him. Like he dropped twice, and he looked like he was completely out. Fuck.
Wow.
How intense that! I'm just waiting for the replay. There we go. Replay time.
Okay.
So he drops him with that first.
Yeah.
Like it could be a little bit off balance, but he was obviously shook.
Okay. Yeah.
And then this is the one where he knocks him out. Look at that.
Oh, yeah.
Right on the chin, dude.
I see it.
Look at his right leg. Ugh. Like, you're out if you don't try to correct that leg positioning. Fuck. How... Like, the perfect punch, too, eh? The guy was just getting a little bit too aggressive. I understand because you pretty much have that guy on the ropes, but... If you leave yourself that open against a heavy puncher like this guy,
that's exactly what happened. He didn't think he thought he was slowing down.
Nope. That's one of the. Look at this guy. He's like, "Fuck."
Oh yeah.
Can you believe that shit?
He was so sure he had it.
He was this close from winning that fight.
Yeah, it's too bad. That's what happens.
And props to the referee for not actually stopping it. Like a lot of referees probably would have stopped that. especially after this one too.
Yeah.
You see him go down twice like that, but nope, they let him recover, and then he knocks him the fuck out right after.
Yeah.
Just one last time. He kind of stumbles in with that, and it just
Yeah.
his momentum of coming back into his fight stance put him right into his right hand. Fuck. Yeah. This was, when the fuck was this? June 26, 2011. So it was over 7 years ago. God damn. I feel like I've been watching this sport forever. That felt like maybe a year ago, 2 years ago. Jeez. All right. Thanks, my man. That was fun.
No problem.
Shout out to my man Marcus Williams. I think that's his name. On Twitter, he's the one that had it suggested to me to show that one to you. I'm starting to ask the people now. And we're getting a little bit of recommendations and suggestions. So
yeah, it was fun.
We'll have another one for you next week. So we'll just quickly go over our past weekend where I swept. That's another sound that I want added, is a sweep.
Okay.
But in this case, we're going to use the horns.
All right.
I went 3 for 3 on my bets. Plus, what is it, 10.63 units. That was an 84% return on investment. Beautiful fucking weekend. I had to go the cheap route of things in terms of something that I said I wasn't really going to do before or wanted to stay away from, which was parlays. However, these two cards that we had in front of us, there was a lot of sketchy, favorites that were like about minus 200 to minus 300 that I wasn't confident in. So I had to parlay a couple guys that I felt very confident in. So kicking off with the tough finale, I had Hani Barcelos and Pedro Munoz. I was waiting for Pedro Munoz to get down to about minus 200. The lowest I saw I'd get was minus 211. I try to be very disciplined when I set these line restrictions. And it saved me a couple times as well. Thinking the last one I can think of is Luis Pena. I think I was waiting for him to get to about minus 150 or so. And the fact that he never got there, I just didn't bet it. And, unfortunately, he lost. That could have been the same thing with this, too. If, Munoz got to minus 200 and he lost, I would have taken that out because I followed something that I felt like is very crucial to me being disciplined in this game. So, Munoz didn't hit minus 200, but I just felt like Hani Barcelos was such a lock on this card, but his odds were just way too out there. I think it was minus 500, minus 600 at a certain point. So I felt like he was kind of like the cherry on top of Pedro Munoz, and the minus, I think it was minus 220-ish, I ended up parlaying him at. So that was 5 units to return 3.83, 77% return. That had me ecstatic. It was my only bet of the night. I didn't want to get too greedy on that card. There were a lot of hazards on that card as well, so I stayed clear as much as I could. And then the following night, we had UFC Adelaide, and I had my lock of the night play was another parlay in Damir Ismagulov and Kai Kara-France. Kai Kara-France kind of gave me a little bit of heart attack, 2 heart attacks in the first and second round. However, he managed to escape that crazy triangle he was pretty much locked up in, and also survived getting dropped in the first round to pretty much cruise to a good a decision victory. So that was great. Ismagulov did his thing against Alex Georges. Georges is a fucking scrub. He sucks, man. I hate being so blunt about certain guys, but that guy is just horrible. And he should pretty much just be cut, man. You can't, when you get taken down and immediately start throwing your hands up like it should be stood up or anything like that, that just shows, you pretty much have no get-up game whatsoever. He didn't even try to implement any try to get-up game. And as soon as he got back to his corner, one of the first things he said to his corner was, I can't get that underhook. I think it was the overhook. I can't remember what exactly he said, but he just kept repeating that, and it just seemed like he was broken at that point. So not a good mentality when you want to go into a fight against a guy as tough as Damir Ismagulov. So easy one there, and then Kai Kara-France did his thing. So that was my lock of the night parlay. It was 5 units to return 2.8. That was great. And then my dog of the night, even if it missed, I still would have been up on the night. So I wasn't too set on seeing this victory come to fruition. But we got it. We got a plus 400 cash on Mauricio Shogun Rua. I had 1 unit on him, so the profit on that was 4 units. I had attested this pick to the fact that Tyson Pedro's fight IQ is not the greatest. He's athletic, he's young, he's explosive, but, he had Shogun hurt in that first round, and he didn't pounce, and he didn't, he tried going for he went for the takedown, and when most people probably would have just kept it on the feet. Shogun's pretty slow at that point, and yeah, Tyson might have gotten caught, but I think his explosiveness and his speed would have been the advantage at that point, especially against an older Shogun Rua and a rock Shogun Rua. So I think he would have been much better off if he actually went for the TKO rather than going for a takedown or a submission. So, and then lo and behold, Shogun gets a fight to the ground in the second round, then eventually finishes in the third. Could not feel better. I tried not bragging as much as I probably should have, considering all the hate that I got for making that bet, but I let everybody else pretty much do it themselves. I'm pretty sure I retweeted a couple people as well that said congrats and nice hit and stuff. So it is what it is. I saw a spot, I went for it, and it paid off this time around. So next time around, maybe it doesn't pay off, but I felt like this was a very good spot to take advantage of a plus 400. So again, overall, plus 10.63 units on the weekend. Amazing weekend, and we roll right into UFC 231 on a 3-event winning streak, which pretty much puts my picks to being paid now. So make sure you visit the website mmalotn.ca, and you guys can just go to the buy picks page. And it's cheap, don't worry. It's just a little thank you, pretty much. So make sure you guys check that out. I already have my Lock of the Night play submitted, so if you guys are listening to this on Wednesday or Thursday, you'll probably already see that. I'll probably wait till about Friday or so to drop a Dog of the Night, if I do at all. So just keep that in mind. But Lock of the Night play is available on the website and on Bet MMA Tips. Totally up to you, whatever you feel comfortable with. But this week, UFC 231, let's kick it off from the bottom of the card, or hopefully what I assume is the bottom of the card. Tapology has been really fucking around with actual bout orders, but it's the most resourceful and easiest one to refer to compared to SureDog or even Wikipedia, at least in my opinion. So kicking things off, we got Carlos Dhiego Ferreira against UFC returner, somebody that's coming back to the UFC, whatever you want to call it, Jesse Ronson. I love Jesse Ronson as a fighter. He's very entertaining. It's unfortunate that he's got put up with such tough competition in his first run in the UFC. Michel Prazeres, Matt Dwyer, he probably should have won that fight. That was actually an Excessive Force FC, but that's a former UFC vet as well. His run in the UFC, Michel Prazeres, Francisco Trinaldo, and Kevin Lee. He couldn't get a worse consecutive fight schedule. They're pretty much the exact opposite of, they have, their strengths are so imposing on Jesse Ronson's fight style that it didn't even allow him to showcase what he could actually do. But luckily for him, he finds himself back in the UFC after stringing 5 straight victories together. And he comes against a guy in Carlos Dhiego Ferreira who might actually be able to be willing to stand there and strike with him. We might be able to see what Jesse Ronson's his full potential is. But Carlos Dhiego Ferreira, he's coming off that massive victory over Jared Gordon. In my opinion, it's a closer fight than the line shows. I wouldn't be totally surprised in seeing Jesse Ronson pull off a decision victory here. I don't think he should be anything worse than plus, I should say. He shouldn't be anything better than plus 220, plus 250-ish. Anything worse than that, I think that, I think is just crazy. Jesse Ronson should definitely be at a closer line than this. But I'm still actually going to take Carlos Dhiego Ferreira in this. I think he just, he has the UFC experience. He's put together a lot of wins. His last loss to Dustin Poirier, considering where Dustin Poirier is at now, not that bad. And then he lost the decision to Benito Dariush. But I'm really expecting Carlos Dhiego Ferreira to win this fight, but I do not agree on the line, so I wouldn't actually bet on this fight, especially with Carlos Dhiego Ferreira worse than minus 300. Next fight, Chad Laprise against Dhiego Lima. This is another fight where I would possibly put the juice on Chad Laprise, but the fact that I feel like there's a much safer play out there, I'm passing on it. If he reaches around minus 250, I might actually put him put some money on him. But currently sitting at minus, let's see what the live odds say at Pinnacle. Pinnacle currently has him at minus 312. So I think that's a little bit too steep in a striker versus striker matchup, but I think Chad Laprise has the more diverse skill set to be able to take the fight to the ground if he needs to. But, I've never been a fan of Dhiego Lima, younger brother. I'm pretty sure he's the younger brother to Douglas Lima, who was a former Bellator champion. But he's lost his last 2 fights to Jesse Taylor, which is a fight that I bet Jesse Taylor in, and Yushin Okami, which was very shocking in terms of the odds being so close in that fight. I thought Yushin Okami had that fight in the bag. I'm not sure why the fuck I didn't bet it, and that's one of the bets that I look back on like fucking hate myself for not actually pulling the trigger on that one. As old as Yushin Okami is, he had the skill set and physicality to bully and pressure a guy like Dhiego Lima, who is pretty much just one-dimensional with his striking, at least in my opinion. I have never really seen much from him that would showcase him to be like a top 15 type fighter in the UFC, and I think that Chad Laprise does have that potential and that skill set. So I'm definitely taking Chad Laprise in this fight. I'm going to say by decision, and it's definitely a lock of the night play. I would consider if the odds get better on Chad Laprise, but I highly doubt they will. I think people are privy to how good Chad Laprise is and how doo-doo Dhiego Lima is. So I'm taking Chad Laprise by decision here. One thing I will give Dhiego Lima is his toughness. I think he could take a strike, but he could just never put it together well enough to beat a guy, who's technically, in my opinion, better in Chad Laprise. All right, next fight. Brad Katona against Matthew Lopez. This is a fight as well where I'm surprised that the odds are so wide. I think, the odds are getting slightly closer now. The last time I checked on Pinnacle, Matt Lopez was -2. Yeah, +2, like +220. She's currently sitting at +200, so I'm guessing people are a little bit more privy to it. Matt Lopez, strong grappler, very powerful puncher, but has shown some deficiencies with his gas tank. If he could really shore up those issues, I think he could be a force to be reckoned with in that bantamweight division. And I think this fight against Brad Katona is very winnable. I don't think he represents what a +200 should, because I think that people would be mainly pointing to the gas tank issues. However, I think that Matt Lopez has the ability to finish Brad Katona in the first 2 rounds to the point where the cardio wouldn't even come into play. He's a very heavy striker. He has great grappling. I think he could shuck any of the takedowns that Brad Katona tries throwing at him if he, tries to go that route. And I think he would be able to land takedowns of his own against Brad Katona. I would say he's the better wrestler out of the two. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Matt Lopez get a takedown and immediately try to go for the back. He is, in his fight against Alejandro Perez, that's something that he showed in the first round alone, was every time he got the takedown, he would always go for the rear naked choke, or at least go for that. He has 2 of those two rear naked chokes victories on his record, especially one being in 30 seconds into the first round, so you can kind of tell, what he's going for. All of his finishes have been in the first round, and I think against an undefeated Brad Katona, he might be able to give Brad Katona his first loss. I truly believe I'm not taking anything away from Brad Katona, though. Brad Katona has a very good overall game. He's a good striker. He throws some good leg kicks. His combinations are very crisp and nice. And then he can mix in the takedowns, pretty much on demand when he needs to. However, when he's not able to get those takedowns, though, against a guy as skilled and, grappling savvy as Matt Lopez, who knows what that's going to make Brad Katona look like. He may be discouraged. He may be, taken aback by that. I am considering Matt Lopez as a potential dog of the night play. I feel like I missed the best line that could possibly come from this fight, but I'm still going to wait and see where that line goes. If he gets to, again, maybe +220, +230 or so, I might bet him. But I think he has a really good chance of winning this fight. So I'm actually going to take Matt Lopez by first round submission, handing Brad Katona his first loss in his pro career. Next fight is a fight that I'm very much looking forward to in Aleksander. There's a lot of fights I'm really looking forward to on this card. I'm a fucking nerd. I am a nerd for this shit. So next fight, Aleksander Rakic against Devin Clark. Kind of a grappler versus grappler, but Devin Clark having the longer base in the grappling in terms of wrestling at least. Aleksander Rakic put on an absolute clinic in his last fight against Justin the Dead, to the point that he pretty much opened, I think, at minus 400 or so, minus 300, and now he is sitting at, what's his line at? Minus 550 on 5 dimes. What's Pinnacle saying? I trust Pinnacle. Pinnacle is given minus 535. On Pinnacle, he even opened at minus 520. So people are giving him a lot of fucking respect, and I won't be surprised to see Aleksander Rakic in a lot of parlays in this card too, and rightfully so in my opinion. I think he deserves to be this big of a favorite. He has the better striking. I think he's going to be the stronger guy in this matchup against Devin Clark, where Devin Clark still has shown tendencies of being a green fighter. I bet I fucked up, I'll own up to it. He took on Jan Blachowicz a little bit too early. The Mike Rodriguez fight was a little bit closer than it should have been. He should be blowing some of these guys out of the water with his pedigree of wrestling and his pedigree of just MMA experience at this point. This is going to be his 11th fight. This will be Aleksander Rakic's 12th fight, but I feel like we see more of a progression with Aleksander Rakic than we have Devin Clark. Rakic has been putting in work. I know he's been working down at ATT, as well as doing his thing over in Austria. I think is he from Austria? Yeah, he's from Austria. I know he's been doing his thing over there. But from the improvements that we've seen from his Fratsmar Bahos fight to his Justin Ledet fight are just amazing. I think we're going to see even more progression from him in this Devin Clark fight. So I think that we'll even get a finish. I think that we're going to get a TKO second round from Aleksander Rakic. You know what? Fuck it. Let's make it first round. TKO Aleksander Rakic against Devin Clark. I wouldn't bet Aleksander Rakic straight. I would think about betting Aleksander inside the distance if it's at good odds, minus 140 or so, minus 150. But maybe a parlay piece. He could probably be a parlay piece, but I'm not saying that's what I'm doing. So final play on this, final pick on this is Aleksander Rakic by first round TKO. Next fight, Gilbert Burns against Olivier Aubin-Mercier. I feel like this fight's been brewing for a while now too. Yeah, they're supposed to fight back in February, but Burns was deemed too heavy to attempt the weight cut. Unfortunate for him. I think that's the night that OAM went on to fight. Who did he fight that night? No, he didn't fight. They just rescheduled him to fight Evan Dunham, which he won in the first round. So, Gilbert Burns, brilliant jiu-jitsu player, has been showing a little bit of power in his hands as of late. He had that finish over Dan Morit, that finish over Jason Saigo. He lost pretty bad in his last fight against Daniel Hooker. But he can't resort to being that striker, that heavy-handed guy when he has such an amazing jiu-jitsu game to look at or to utilize. If he can use that crazy wild striking to close a distance to get these takedowns, he should be working on the takedowns. He should be working on his wrestling game. Because once he can get that fight to the ground and he can keep fighters hesitant enough on the feet that he could, lull them into a certain state and then go for a takedown just so he can implement his jiu-jitsu game, that's going to be a very dangerous person. But another one of his deficiencies is his gas tank. We've seen him gas in the past. We've seen him wing punches and, be very sloppy. And sometimes he's been successful, like when he knocked out Jason Sego. But then at a certain point it's going to catch up to you, especially when you're fighting one of the newer breeds of fighters, in my opinion, as Olivier Aubin-Mercier. He's one of those Rory McDonald type of guys where, I think he pretty much started up from MMA, not any other real legit like background wrestling or anything like that, but he started off MMA. And, I feel like he should be better than what his record dictates, which is currently at 11-3. But I think, that decision lost to Alexander Hernandez. I think Hernandez is just a better version of him. But I think the OAM is definitely in a place where he could win this fight against Gilbert Burns. I think his jiu-jitsu is good enough to stay out at any type of submissions that Gilbert Burns might throw at him. But I think his striking is massively better than Gilbert Burns. Gilbert Burns, again, a little bit more wild with his striking, throws bombs pretty much in every punch. Whereas Olivier Aubin-Mercier is a little bit more technical, very strong as well. So I think he's definitely going to have the strength advantage in this fight against Gilbert Burns. So I'm actually going to be going with OAM by either third round stoppage or a decision victory. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't have the best read on. I'm still, looking at that fight. It's definitely a fight that I might be betting as well. So I'm definitely going to be putting in a little bit more hours of tape on that fight. But as of right now, I'm actually going to be taking OAM by third round finish. I think that he just pushes the pace a little bit more in that third round when Gilbert Burns starts to slow down, and he moves on to getting a TKO late in the third round.
Yeah, boy.
No dead air.
Never a dull moment.
Next fight, we got a hometown guy in Elias Theodorou against Eryk Anders. This guy looks like Prince of Persia. Like if they were supposed to cast Prince of Persia, this is who they should get. He's actually from Mississauga.
Shoot.
Yeah. He used to train at a gym that I used to work at. But super cool dude, Elias Theodorou. Everybody knows him as the guy who is probably the first and only ever male to get a PERT sponsorship for his luscious locks. But he's going up against Eryk Anders this time around. Eryk Anders has fallen on a little bit of in his last 3 fights, has been very rocky. Even though that win he had against Tim Williams, that was a tough fought victory. Tim Williams came in as a plus 400 or plus 500 underdog, maybe even more than that, and really took it to Eryk Anders. He was pretty close to winning that fight. That decision would have been very interesting. From what I remember, Tim Williams won that first round. I can't recall the second or third round, but obviously we know how the third round finished with Eryk Anders landing that beautiful head kick and just folding Tim Williams. But we've seen a little bit of regression in his game in those fights, and then he lost to Thiago Santos. You know what? I'll give that. I'll give him that one just because of the fact that it was super late notice fight. The Lyoto Machida fight, that was a fight that he was a big favorite in. A lot of people bet on him, and he lost a split decision. It's unfortunate. You should be beating a guy like Lyoto Machida in 2018, especially if you're this hot, rising, up-and-coming prospect. The Marcus Perez fight, so like the Rafael Natal fight, the Marcus Perez fight, those showcase what a good Eryk Anders can look like. With Tim Williams, he's that stronger guy who's able to push the pace a little bit more, and I think that's the best comparison that we can get to Elias Theodorou when looking at this matchup. Eryk Anders gets into these phases where he kind of just like watches. He doesn't really pull the trigger. He waits, and then he'll throw a bomb or something, or he'll start to initiate the clinch and try to get the takedown or something like that. But he has too many of these lulls. He's more so just waiting for his opponent to do something, and he doesn't do the best job of countering off those situations as well. Elias Theodorou, on the other hand, always moving. We used to call him the cardio king when he used to train at the gym. Even in the Score Fighting Series when he was fighting back there, everybody used to call him the cardio king. He can keep up a pace, he can keep moving, keep on his feet, he can throw a punch and move out, close the distance pretty quickly, land where he needs to and get out. And I think against a guy like Eryk Anders, it's pretty much in Elias's favor in this fight. There's a reason the odds closed as much as they did. Right now, Elias is the fucking favorite. That's crazy. He opened up as the plus 125 underdog. It got up to plus 185 or so, and now he's the minus 125 favorite. So I think he's rightfully the favorite in this fight. Eryk Anders has the size and grindability, if that's what you want to call it, to beat Elias. But I think that his just lack of activity at times is going to give away this fight. And I think that Elias's pace, his strength as well. He's pretty good in the clinch positions too. Beautiful knees, and he stays pretty active. I think it's going to give Eryk Anders some issues. So I'm not surprised at the line flip. I kind of wish that I had taped this a little bit earlier. And I probably would have bet Elias at dog money now that I'm thinking about it. But I'm going to keep my eye on that line. If it gets back to plus money, it's something that I might eventually play. But with it being at close odds, at minus money, and I already have a lock of the night play set, I'm probably just going to stick away from that unless Elias dips back into plus money. But my official decision or pick for this is going to be Elias Theodorou by decision. Next up, we got I forgot this fight's on the card. Jessica I against Katlyn Chookagian, or as Jessica I calls her, Chookagian. Katlyn Chookagian. So Katlyn Chookagian, 11-1. She's coming off a victory over Alexis Davis, so she's running on a 3-fight winning streak right now. Her fight against Irene Aldana was really close too. Aldana's a great prospect in that division too. I don't know if I should really call her a prospect anymore, but very close fight. We know what Katlyn Chookagian's game is. She's a very stand-up oriented fighter. She likes her point striking. There's not much heat coming off of her strikes. I want to see if she even has any finishes. She has one finished by a knee and one by an armbar. And one by a knee again. So 2 finishes by KO, 1 by submission, everything else by decision. And she has 10 victories. So there's not much fire coming off those hands, but she is very effective with her striking. Against Jessica I, Jessica I has some decent stand-up as well, but I don't know if Katlyn Chookagian is going to be able to do that to Jessica I. I could see Jessica I, trying to get this into a clinch fight, get this to a point where, Katlyn's not able to run away and implement her in and out point striking. If Jessica I is able to just try to get her to the fence and then close the distance and start pushing on her and grinding on her, this might be a fight that she can win. Excuse me. Jessica I is currently plus 155. That's a fight that I'm going to have to look into a little bit more. The more that I'm thinking about it, the more I am considering Jessica I play, but don't take my word for it yet. I just don't think the most of Katlyn Chookagian. She's a great point fighter, but when she fights somebody with a little bit more fight experience or somebody that has a little bit more facets to her game, it could get a little interesting. So I'm going to leave my pick up in the air for that, but just for the sake of it, I'm going to take Jessica I by decision, but don't quote me on that shit. Next fight, Claudia Gadelha, or Claudia Gadelha, however you want to say it, against Nina Ansaroff, a.k.a. the fiancée to bantamweight champion Amanda Nunes. Nina Ansaroff is coming off of 3 straight wins. Her last win over Randa Marcos. That was a pretty good bounce-back performance from her. That was a fight where in the first round she was pretty much getting dominated by Randa Marcos, all up until maybe 20 seconds left in that round, and then they finally got on the feet and she landed a couple shots, but that was easily Randa Marcos' round. And then she comes back and wins the next 2 rounds. Something that she leaned heavily on in that fight was the calf kick, and it definitely played a factor into Randa Marcos being able to complete her takedowns. Randa was resorting to more so these Hail Mary takedowns and entering from too far, just grabbing the ankles of fucking Nina Ansaroff. Jesus, get it together, man, Preet. Just grabbing the ankles of Randa Marcos, Randa Marcos just grabbing the ankles of Nina Ansaroff. She didn't have much behind it. Like, she wasn't able to complete the takedowns like she was in that first round. And if Nina Ansaroff is able to survive the first round with Claudia Gadelha, or even the first 1.5 rounds of that fight, she has a good chance of running away with her in the second and third, because we've seen a clear dip in Claudia Gadelha's gas tank. It's unfortunate. We saw it in the Carla Esparza fight. We've seen it in past fights. She's an extremely talented fighter, and I think she smokes Nina Ansaroff pretty much any day. But if her gas tank slips up a little bit in this fight, she could get it taken away from her pretty much. It all depends on if she can keep it together for 2 rounds. I don't think that Nina Ansaroff has the ability to finish Claudia Gadelha even if she's gassed. So I still think that Claudia Gadelha is going to do enough to win the first 2 rounds. She's going to be the stronger of the two. She's going to, be she's going to get the takedown, and she's the better striker in my opinion too. So I'm going to go with Claudia Gadelha by decision, but it could get very dicey and very interesting if Nina Ansaroff can start pulling away after the 1.5 rounds mark. But this is definitely not a fight where I feel comfortable laying minus 320 on Claudia Gadelha. So I'm not saying bet her at minus 320. She could be a good parlay piece, just like Aleksander Rakic is, but not worth it at minus 320 straight. Next fight, I believe, is the first fight of the main card. We got Thiago Santos against Jimi Manuwa. This is a great fight. And I love the fact that Maheta is actually going up to light heavyweight. I'm hoping for good now. You know, this is his second straight fight at light heavyweight. The Eryk Anders fight obviously was at light heavyweight due to the fact that Eryk Anders took it on really short notice. But I love this fight against Jimi Manuwa, man. Like, these guys are bangers. These guys can knock each other out for sure. I do not see it going to a decision at all. I know I said that for whatever fucking the Shabazian and Darren Stewart fight last week, but this fight, there's no way this fight goes to a decision, right? But obviously there's no value on it if it's at minus 500 or whatever the fuck the last time I saw it at. But saw it. I saw it at minus 500 or so last time, but I don't think it's worth that straight up bet. But these guys, again, it could go either way. I think Thiago Santos is the better striker in terms of the more technical and the more vicious striker, and Jimi Manuwa's chin has just been fucked, man. Like, his knockout losses have been pretty brutal, and I think that's why the lines are so odd so wide right now. Thiago Santos currently sitting at minus 220. You know, he got put out pretty bad by Volkan Ozdemir. He got put out pretty bad by Anthony Johnson as well as Alexander Gustafsson. So, and he lost to Jan Blachowicz in his last fight. So he's pretty much on the digression or the depreciate side. Fuck. Why am I coming up with words today? He's on the tail end of his career, I should say. And Thiago Santos is still rising. It's weird because I think, Thiago Santos has maybe 2 less fights than him, but I still feel like he's rising, and especially in this light heavyweight division, you rack up 2 or 3 straight wins, you could find yourself in a title shot. So I think Thiago Santos gets a finish here. I'm going to say first round. I think it's going to be a barn burner while it lasts, but I think that Thiago Santos is going to be the one that lands the shot on Jimi Manuwa, who has the weaker chin at this point, and gets the victory here. But hey, Jimi Manuwa could be the first one to land that shot too. But I just feel more comfortable in Thiago Santos and his durability compared to Jimi Manuwa's. Next fight should be a great fight between 2 guys that are probably not as known as Jimi Manuwa and Thiago Santos. But Kyle Bochniak and Hakeem Dawodu are going to go to fucking war this Saturday. 2 featherweights going at it with very aggressive and fun stand-up styles. Kyle Bochniak coming off that loss to Zabit Magomedsharipov. Crazy fight. You know, he pretty much showed just reckless abandon. He did not give a fuck in that fight. He knew he was going to lose that fight pretty much, and he was willing to go in there and just put it all on the line. You know, he had a lot of crazy exchanges with Zabit. Zabit was always the one to puss out a little bit. I'm not saying puss out in a bad way, but like, he was the one looking for the way out of these crazy exchanges first, and that's the smarter move, of course, right? But in this fight with Hakeem Dawodu, he has a fight on his hands, man. Hakeem Dawodu is a nasty Muay Thai fighter. He was very highly touted coming into the UFC. Unfortunately, he got put out in his UFC debut against Danny Henry with a guillotine choke. Why do I think he got knocked out? Well, he got choked out within 40 seconds of the first round against Danny Henry, but then he came back and put on a clinic against Austin Arnett. But I don't think that he's going to be fighting a guy like Austin Arnett, who I believe played into Hakeem's game and allowed Hakeem to get off his striking to the extent of going to a 5 or a 3-round decision, or a unanimous decision especially. Kyle Bochniak's not going to allow that. If Kyle Bochniak pushes the pace, throws with heat, as we know he does, and is kind of, you know, unafraid of the firefight, I think he has a really good shot of winning this fight. What are the odds right now? Plus 145. So the odds are starting to close on Bochniak, man. He was somebody that I was considering. He got up to roughly about plus 175. It's at plus 145 right now. I'm going to keep my eye on that line too. I'm very high on Hakeem. You know, he does have very nasty striking. His leg kicks are vicious. You know, he throws a very good front teep. And I think he could be a force to be reckoned with in this featherweight division. But there's certain guys that can pose that style that could possibly, make a losing night for Hakeem Dawodu. So the only way Hakeem has lost thus far has been to a guillotine choke, and I don't know if Bochniak's going to be able to pull out a guillotine choke from him, but he definitely has the ability to push the pace and make it a dirty fight, and a fight that Hakeem Dawodu is not going to be able to get comfortable in. I want to see Hakeem win just because I'm so high on the dude, and I like the dude. Like, the guy's a good fighter, and from all the interviews and stuff I've seen, he's a cool dude, and he's a fellow Canadian. But Bochniak has that style, man, and without... I'm definitely going to look into it a little bit more because I may bet this fight. But just off of this, I got to go with Bochniak, man. I think that he's going to be able to push the pace and keep Hakeem uncomfortable to the point that he's not going to be able to throw any of his striking. And Bochniak goes on to win a decision. So, yeah. Unfortunately, I'm picking against the Canadian at home. Next fight is another fight that is possibly fight of the night. And Alex Cowboy Oliveira against Gunnar Nelson. Gunnar Nelson coming back from a lengthy layoff from when he last fought Santiago Ponzinibbio, which is marred in a little bit of controversy. It was back in July of last year. He lost by punches in the first round, 1 minute 22 seconds, but a lot of people are saying that there was an eye poke involved in there. He didn't really contest about it right off the bat, but unfortunate ending to that fight for him. He was coming off of 2 straight wins to Albert Tumenov and Alan Jobin, but now he's back. He's fighting Alex Oliveira. It's been a long time off, roughly about a year and a half. And Alex Oliveira is a really tough fight to come back to. So when this fight was announced, I heard a lot of people that were actually on Cowboy, and I was expecting the line to open relatively at even and then start to go towards Alex Oliveira. However, we're sitting on Tuesday before the fight, and it's minus 135 Gunnar Nelson, minus 132 at Sportbet, which is the best line available right now. That's a line that I was expecting to get Gunnar Nelson at plus money. If he hits plus money, I will more than likely bet him. Haven't bet him yet. Don't know if I will for sure bet him because there are other underdogs that I like. But if he hits plus money, it's something that I'm going to consider. I think is the cleaner, more technical, and more creative striker on the feet. Alex Oliveira is very wild. He's very aggressive. He is, he's efficient with his striking, but he is aggressive. His leg kicks are crazy. He puts together combinations very well. But with Gunnar Nelson, he just has that calmness about him, and his jiu-jitsu game is next level too. So I think he could definitely take advantage of Oliveira on the ground if it got there. But I think he's going to be the more precise striker, and that's where I think it could get dicey for Alex Oliveira. Alex Oliveira in his fight against Yancy Medeiros, I think, the gas tank issue reared its head due to the fact that he had a broken nose in that fight. I think he broke it in the first round, if not the beginning of the second round, but he eventually got finished by Yancy in the third round, and I think a lot of that had to do with his broken nose. It's obviously very hard to breathe through your nose when you got blood just gushing out of it, and that really fucks with your breathing, and that's going to fuck with your cardio too. So I think that really screwed him over in that fight. He came back and he beat Carlos Condit and Carlos Condit, and then he beat Carlo Pedersoli. Carlos and Carlo, how fucked is that? Back to back. But this Gunnar Nelson fight's going to be really tough for him. So I'm actually going to take Gunnar Nelson. I think he's actually even going to finish him. I wouldn't be surprised to see a rear naked choke for Gunnar Nelson in the second round. Co-main event time. We got the flyweight strap up for grabs. Recently vacated by Nico Montano, who just pretty much refused to fight Valentin Shevchenko. Say what you want to say. I don't want to spread any rumors, but that's pretty much what everybody heard. Thus, Valentin Shevchenko fights Joanna Jędrzejczyk, former strawweight champion, and this fight's going to be straight fire.
Yeah.
I can't fucking wait for this fight. These ladies have fought 3 times before in Muay Thai way back in the day, but now they're in a new realm. They're fighting in MMA. Both of them have had their successes. Joanna, being the long-standing, dominant strawweight champion, while Valentina Shevchenko has just been wrecking shop at 135, other than Amanda Nunes. But she's beaten Holly Holm, she's beaten Juliana Pena, and she showed off her armbar in that fight too, where a lot of people thought that her method to victory in that fight would be a knockout. So that was a very surprising outcome. But with Jędrzejczyk, she had those 2 losses to Rose. She got that decision victory over Tisha Torres just to kind of regain her confidence and her, you just got to regain that morale after coming off of 2 devastating losses. So, I think she's in the right state of mind. Going up to 125, it might even be better for her, cardio, her chin too, especially getting put out by Rose in that fight. That was pretty bad. Going up in weight might be better for her. She's going up against a pretty big Valentina Shevchenko, who should rightfully be at 125, but she would definitely be the bigger one in this fight. And who knows how much strength would have a factor in this. I think Valentina is the better grappler out of the two. I think she has the better, submission arsenal. But their striking is like, Joanna, you're getting the quick in and out 7 fucking strikes or something and an elbow here and there and then jump out. She's very quick. She's very stingy. She fights. She's a savage. She's pretty much a savage. She would have more knockouts on her record if she had a little bit more knockout power, but all of her strikes are still like very, detrimental to her opponents. But Valentina Shevchenko, she's a strong striker. She outstruck Holly Holm in a 5-round decision. She was landing beautiful counters. And I'm very interested to see if she's going to be able to implement that against Joanna Jędrzejczyk, who might have the speed advantage in this fight. To me, I just don't know where it's going to go. I don't know if Valentina is going to want to take this fight to the ground, where I think she has that advantage over Joanna, especially having the strength advantage over her on the ground, just being the bigger and stronger woman. Or is Joanna going to be able to fend off all takedowns if she's going to keep it on the feet the entire time? Is Valentina Shevchenko striking, which is upper echelon in the women's division, if it's going to be up to the par of Joanna and she's going to be able to keep up with that speed and whatever it is that Joanna's throwing at her? It's very tough for me. Joanna at plus 290 is kind of ridiculous in my opinion. I want to see, have they dropped the props yet? No, they haven't done the props yet. But I wouldn't mind taking a small poke at Joanna by decision. Like if she's able to keep this fight on the feet, she could easily outstrike Valentina Shevchenko. Okay, maybe not easily. Valentina Shevchenko is a very disciplined striker, and I think she has, she could maybe even knock out Joanna. Who knows how bad Joanna's chin issues are. She hasn't got knocked out in her last 2 fights, so it is what it is. But when you're fighting a bigger fighter, Valentina Shevchenko, with just as much striking prowess as you, what kind of issues does that bring to your table? So, I don't know which way to go in this fight. So I'm going to say Valentina Shevchenko by submission, maybe 4th round. But I will look into this fight a little bit more. I might take a small poke at Joanna by decision if it's like plus 500 or something like that. But fuck, man, it's a close fight. A part of me doesn't want to bet on the fight just so I don't have any stake in it, so I can kind of just watch it and fucking enjoy it. But I'll wait and see. I'll see what those props look like. So, just for the sake of the podcast, I'm going to go with Valentina Shevchenko by decision. Main event time. Fucking the fight that I could almost not stop talking about at the beginning of this podcast, and a fight that deserves.
Yeah. All right. Whoa. Double. Whoa.
This is some shit. This is some shit. I am knocking on all the wood in the world right now. I don't have wood right now, but I'm just saying, I'm knocking on all the wood. And anytime I pass a tree or anything like that, I'm knocking on it. I don't give a fuck. This fight needs to happen. Max Holloway versus Brian Ortega is slowly turning into the featherweight version of Khabib Nurmagomedov against Tony Ferguson. It's a fight that, it's been put together, what is it, 2 times now? It for sure hasn't been at least once. I'm too scared. I'm so just threatened and scarred by the Tony Ferguson Khabib Nurmagomedov bullshit that I just don't feel like we'll ever see this fight. But it's scheduled for this Saturday. It's Tuesday. We're almost there. Weigh-in day will probably be the day where we find out if Max Holloway is actually going to make it, which is Friday. But Max Holloway, Brian Ortega, this is number 1 and number 2 at this division, at this current date, at this current moment. Number 1 and number 2 at 145. Max Holloway, Brian Ortega. They both bring very interesting styles to this fight. Max Holloway is an amazing striker. We've seen him grow up in the UFC pretty much. I'm pretty sure he came into the UFC when he was 4-1. Yeah, he was 4-0 when he came into the UFC and made his debut against an 11-1 Dustin Poirier. This was way back in 2012. He's put together one of the most amazing records since that time. He dropped 2 fights to Dennis Bermudez in a fight that he probably should have won, and then he lost to Conor McGregor. But since then, Will Chope, Andre Fili, Clay Collard, Akira Corsani, Cole Miller, Cub Swanson, Charles Oliveira, Jeremy Stevens, Ricardo Lamas, Anthony Pettis, Jose Aldo. 12 straight fights. 1 title defense. 2 title defense. 1 title defense. The Anthony Pettis fight was an interim title. Fought Jose Aldo. Was it an interim title? Pretty sure it was an interim title. Yeah, interim title. Yeah, watch that shit live. What the fuck am I talking about? Yeah, interim title against Anthony Pettis. Eventually won the title from Jose Aldo, and then defended against Jose Aldo once again. Fuck, man. Like, his striking is so good. Like, he does a very good job of controlling the fight on the feet, going at the pace that he needs to, or letting the fighter kind of like wear themselves out like Anthony Pettis did, and like Jose Aldo did both times. He finished Jose Aldo in the 3rd round 40 seconds away apart from each other from both fights. He kind of, even in the 3rd round against Anthony Pettis, he beat him in the 3rd round. Like, how fucked is that? We could see another 3rd round finish for him against Brian Ortega, but Brian Ortega, I think, has that a little bit more juice than Jose Aldo had, and a little bit more juice than Anthony Pettis had. He's just more in his prime. He's still lacking in his stand-up, even though that Brian Ortega has knocked out Frankie Edgar. That was just one of those crazy shots, that fucking uppercut. It's something that I'm actually going to show Big Rob probably next week. Crazy how much power he was able to generate from that uppercut and basically lift Frankie Edgar off his feet. But besides that, technically, he's probably not the best fighter out there, or at least not the best stand-up striker out there. Max Holloway definitely has a stand-up advantage in this fight. Max Holloway is, very talented on the ground, but Brian Ortega is next level. So we get 2 kind of contrasting styles where we have Max Holloway, who's like up here with striking, and Brian Ortega is kind of down here. And then we get on the ground, Brian Ortega's up here, and probably Max Holloway is just maybe here. He's not as further down as Brian Ortega is when it comes to the striking, but it's going to be so interesting to see how the fight plays out, though. Like, is it going to be like a Renato Moicano and Brian Ortega fight where Moicano just completely outstruck Ortega for 2.5 rounds and then gets caught in the guillotine? I don't think Max Holloway is that type of fighter to go for a desperation takedown and leave his neck wide open against a fucking fighter like Brian Ortega, who can clamp on any choke at any time, pretty much whenever he wants, as we found in that Cub Swanson fight where he was able to readjust his grip in the middle of the fucking air. That was crazy. By the way, never betting on Cub Swanson ever again. That was fucked. I have dreams of this fight just because I know it's going to be that entertaining. The fact that the fight does not go to a decision at -190, I completely think that is justified. I heard a lot of people saying that they could see a Max Holloway decision victory. However, I think that the striking that he brings is going to overwhelm Brian Ortega. It could maybe break Brian Ortega later in the fight where he just keeps getting hit and he just can't do anything about it. He can't get Max Holloway down. And I think that we could see a ground and pound Max Holloway finish in terms of like dropping Brian Ortega and then just, ricocheting off a bunch of shots and getting the finish from there. Brian Ortega's obvious path to victory in this fight is the submission. Is he going to be able to clamp onto Max Holloway? Is he going to be able to push Max Holloway against the cage, drag him down, pull guard, do whatever he needs to do to get that fight to a position where he can pull a submission? I don't think so. I don't think Max Holloway's fight AQ is amazing. Even though he got into that crazy fucking slugfest at the end of the 3rd round against Ricardo Lamas, I think he knows how much depends on him winning this fight, how big this fight is for his legacy as well. And I think he comes away with the 4th round TKO in this, and maybe even 3rd round. Unless Brian Ortega has improved his striking leaps and bounds, this fight is going to remain on the feet. I just don't see how Max Holloway gets taken down. Brian Ortega is pretty big. I haven't actually compared their sizes in particular. So we got Max Holloway 5'11", 69-inch reach, and we got Brian Ortega 5'9", 69-inch reach. So Holloway has about two inches on him, but he is a longer, lankier dude, so I completely understand. But I truly think as long as Max Holloway health and well-being is in check, he wins this fight. As long as the weight cut goes well, as long as all the, pre-fight medicals and all that shit goes well, and we get 100%, UFC 2, what was it, where he fought? UFC 218 against Jose Aldo, UFC 212 against Jose Aldo, UFC 206 against Anthony Pettis. If we get that type of Max Holloway health-wise, he wins this fight. And minus 125 would seem like a complete joke. But I believe that's a huge wrinkle in this, is we don't know what his health is like going into this. It was a really bad scare when he was supposed to fight Brian Ortega last time. It was a pretty bad scare when he was supposed to fight Khabib Nurmagomedov last time as well. So he needs to make sure his health is on point. And if he is, I think he wins this fight. I'm going to say he is, and I truly believe that he is. And I think that he wins this fight. 4th round, TKO, over a Brian T. City that we will more than likely see in a title fight probably in the next 2 or 3 years once again. I think we'll see a better version of him that time around, and that might be his time. But I think right now, as Max Holloway says, and as most people hate that he says, it's a blessed era. And I think that Max Holloway wins this fight. So that's pretty much it for my picks this week. I got my one lock of the night play posted on the website, so make sure you guys go check that out, www.mmalotn.ca. Follow me on Twitter at MMALOTN. Like, subscribe, rate, whatever the fuck Twitter does or YouTube does. Do that shit at the bottom. It actually helped last time. That was fucking weird. It actually helped. So make sure you do that shit. We're closing in on 100 subscribers, so that's a mini milestone. I'll take that. Next week we got UFC Milwaukee, headlined by Ali Quinta against Kevin Lee. That is the last fight in the 11-week stretch of fights that we've had. Fucking crazy. I've had fun. I've loved it. I'm a UFC nut, so I'm just happy to have a UFC pretty much every weekend. And I think mid-January to end of March or end of April, there's a huge spree of fights too. So I think we get pretty much a fight every weekend from that chunk of time. So next weekend will be the last one of their 11 straight weeks, I believe it was. It was either 9 or 11, something like that. I'll be back to break that down. Lock Fight League, been going great. We're going into the 3rd week this week. So on Wednesday, we're going to be doing that, which is tomorrow. So this might already be out. So today, we got $75 on the line and $80 on the line. And then next week, we're doing the playoffs. So the Season 3 will actually end next week. And we might actually have somebody win a cash prize. Who the fuck knows? Until then, make sure you check out, again, MMALOTN.ca, at MMALOTN on Twitter. Until next week, later.